Hi everyone. Did you know that the human body has set proportions? Yes, it does. The height of one's body is usually the length of 7.5 to 8 heads lined up in a column. Now, the width of the shoulder is usually as wide as 3 heads placed in a row. The elbow is also lined up with the navel. The tip of your middle finger will line up with your thigh. Just remember, your middle finger should not be at your knee or even past it. Remembering these simple rules of proportion or bodily proportion will make it much easier and quicker for you to draw a person. Now, observation is the key to achieving very good drawings. I know as young artists, you would sometime want to draw persons in your drawing book looking like stick figures. Well, use the guidelines I taught you earlier and apply them to the stick man in order to create a proportional body. Then you can build on the stick man. Okay guys, let us now watch this video to see how someone created a figure using these guidelines.
The way to do this is to firstly draw a vertical line which will be the size of the figure that you want to draw. Then simply divide that up into 8 units, so half it and then half it again. For the purpose of this tutorial and to be as accurate as possible, I'll use a ruler, but this can easily be done freehand. Each one of these points will represent a different area of the body. I made a tutorial a while back covering how to draw the head, and in that video we was able to divide different areas into sections to give us the placement of the features. We are going to be doing something similar here as I walk you through these units. So we have the height of our figure, now we need the width, and 2 1/3 of these units will be the relative width for the male figure. For females it's usually about 2 units wide. Now what I'm going to do is bring some lines down and create a box with the dimensions that we have here. It isn't necessary, by the way, to draw all of these dividing lines every time that you draw the figure. These are just the dimensions that you want to have in mind because they act as a guide. I'm also going to bring these dividing lines across so we have some kind of a grid. This is what we will use to look at the proportions on a front view. Now of course we can't just look at them on a front view, we also need a side view. This will be at the same height and I'm going to take the same dividing lines and extend these across. Okay, so before I start drawing the figure, using the divisions which we have here. First of all, we know that 1 unit equals 1 head, so this is where the head will go. The top of the head will go here and then the chin will be here. To draw the shape of the head, I normally create a circle or a sphere in perspective for the cranium and build everything else on that. I'm not going to draw the facial features or anything, I'm just going to keep this as simple as possible. But after the head has been drawn in, the next line down is where the nipples would be. These are about 1 head distance apart, and that's useful to know, but at this stage we don't really need to draw them in because we're just blocking out a mannequin. So between the nipples and the chin, not only do we have the neck, but we also have the shoulders. So to find where the shoulders would go, we divide this unit into thirds. And this will give us the top of the shoulders, also the top of the section for the torso, and then we can bring the neck down to the top of that line as well. So this next dividing line down is the navel. Now if we divide this unit into thirds, the top of the bottom third is roughly where the ribcage would end, and down from that would be the hips. Now for our mannequin we just taper this upper torso down for the waist, which is a bit wider than 1 head distance. For the upper torso section, I have the chest area here extruding out a little bit. And again, we are just blocking it out here, whereas normally the form of the figure has this natural curve to it, which I'm sure will be covered in another video. We bring it down to this point and then create the section which reaches that navel line. So the line down from the navel will be the crotch area. We are just going to block this in again. From the waist, this section will begin to taper outwards towards that line. Normally I make this the same width as the top of the torso, so around 2 heads wide. First of all, it's worth noting that the upper section of the body is 4 units and the legs are also 4 units, each of them being equal in height, and that's useful to know when you draw the figure. So now we need to add some legs and the arms, but I'll leave the arms until last and begin to block out the legs. This is pretty simple because the top section of the legs are about 2 head units high, and this division here represents the bottom of the knees. Let's block in the upper section of the legs. To keep it simple, we can just draw in the joints as circles. And so now the last 2 units are for the lower section of the legs, and we have to add the feet as well, so I usually just give that about 1/3 of a unit at the bottom. So now for the arms, I'm just going to block in that shoulder joint, which is a circle, and the arms are also separated into 2 sections. The upper section comes from that shoulder joint down where the navel line would be, because at that point we have the elbow joint. The lower section of the arm is just shorter than 1 unit, connecting to the wrist and the hand, which in a neutral pose like this comes down to around here. So that is our mannequin block out, and right now these are just flat projections with a grid which helps us understand the proportions of the human figure. Eventually, when we start to look at this in perspective, these shapes will be 3-dimensional forms. Now to end this video and to show you how this represents draw the figure realistically at this stage, but I think it will help to be able to compare and see it alongside the mannequin block out. You can also see how this grid and the 8 dividing head units relate to the features on the surface of the body.